The time has come for my people to go.
I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's what the people demand, and we're gonna keep fighting till we get that land. I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's time to rise, to get what we want, we got to organize.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pantsula Podcast, brought to you by the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. For those who are not familiar with the A-APRP, we were founded in 1968 by the late, great Kwame Ture. For those who are not familiar with us as well, and our objective is the total Pan-Africanism, which is the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. So as you can see here, we have some guests. We have my comrade here, Evan. Before we go ahead and start and get into it, for those who are familiar with our podcast, we like to commemorate every episode to two of our ancestors. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Evan. He's going to go ahead and let you know who ancestors commemorating for this episode.
All right, so for this episode, we're going to commemorate Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Connie Matthews. So Jean-Jacques Dessalines, it was the first emperor of Haiti, first independent Haiti. He was the constitution of Haiti, knowing that any African, not just of those in what was in Saint-Domingue and liberated to Haiti, that any African on this land would be free, and that the French is like no, the French they won't have that land. Of course, we know about the history of Haiti and all the counter revolutions against by the French, by the U.S., the Germans, and so on and so forth. And we want to honor him. And also Connie Matthews, she was a part of the Black Panther Party, and what she did was she had connections between the Black Panthers and the United States as well, and connected the Panthers to left-wing groups and revolution groups, including those as well in Europe. And in addition, she was also and if you read a book about the revolution in Algeria, she also helped out with the Panthers there in Algeria, and she transitioned in 1993. And again, like we recognize that even though a lot of the Black Panthers that people might know of were male, or some women like the Elaine Browns, Catherine Cleavers, Erica Huggins, and so forth. But there are many African women who have been involved throughout. So just want to honor those two, and so glad to have Mwalimu and Yuri here. I hope I pronounced both names right.
Hey, glad to have you brothers on, man. Just want to start off, I guess maybe if you guys could just give a brief intro to yourselves and the organization you guys are part of and representing.
Yeah, so we represent an organization in Greenville, North Carolina. That's Eastern North Carolina, called Mapinduzi, and that's Swahili for revolution. And really, the organization really began last year after the death of George Floyd, and that uprising that occurred all throughout the country. In the city that we live in, there's not a lot of radical or really no radical politics when it comes to a lot of the things that we deal with. So as far as the South, where we reside at, it's a lot of traditionalism when it comes to how people want to approach the civil rights movement. So, we wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to add some theory on it. We wanted to add some Huey on it, some Black Panther Party, some Black Liberation Army, and just try to revive the Black radical tradition as much as we can. So that's how we came up with Mapinduzi, and have been really, been working ever since.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I guess maybe you could talk us through like some of the struggles or some of the goals and aspirations of the party overall. Like, are you guys aligned with Pan-Africanism? Is it more of a Black nationalist organization? Kind of just walk us through some of that.
Yeah, we're more of a, as far as the ideology, I would say Marxist Leninist, but also very much a Pan-Africanist and revolutionary nationalist sort of formation. Since Lenin did speak on the rights of nations to self-determination, we pretty much take that seriously. So that's mainly what our ideology is. As far as our goals, I would say our goals is basically the liberation of all what we call colonized people, particularly at this point in Eastern North Carolina, since that's where we operate out of. And to that end, we do stress political education. We stress, mutual aid. We stress accountability for the institutions that control our lives, like the police and educational institutions. So we have been engaged in struggles to try to have community control of those specific institutions.
Right on. So a couple questions I had. I know you, Mapinduzi. We were just wondering if taking on from Mapinduzi had anything to do with the Julius Nyerere and Chama Mapinduzi in Tanzania, and also you talked about mutual aid, like especially since the George Floyd murder. That there have been many organizations who talk about, oh, we're doing mutual aid, we're doing this, and then so there's some organizations that do mutual aid, but even then it's just like, wait, you're just doing it, you're just using charity. And it's like, so mutual aid means mutual, like you're not just giving out like stuff to them, like you actually make it that, like usually involves like having people involved in the organization, that they're not just getting it, but they're also not to say that getting stuff is unimportant, but also that they're actually helping out in self-determination and finding their power in a world that just wants to shut them down. So we talk about both of those parts.
Yeah, I think that that would go back to the educational component, because you're right. We don't we don't want to just end up being just another charity organization. The goal is to demonstrate to the people in the community that you can meet your own needs. You don't necessarily have to rely on the state, which has no interest in helping you anyway. So yeah, that goes along with the educational component. At our mutual aid events, we always have literature that we're passing out. We always leave contact information for the people that that come up to us or that we go around to. So yeah, definitely. Again, we stress that educational component, because what we're trying to get people to realize is that you don't necessarily have to depend on any sort of outside forces. You actually have everything you need in your community. It's just a matter of developing it. So
we say this thing in Mapinduzi where we custodians of the people. So Mapinduzi really belongs to the people. So I think what makes our mutual aid different, right, from others, I ain't gonna say we ain't too much different, because like you said, a lot of people doing mutual aid and good work. There's some comrades out there doing excellent work. But what makes our mutual aid different is the ability that community members have to come and be a part of our mutual aid. When community members come out to our mutual aid, not only do they have access to material things that they may need and information that might help them, understand the reality around them a little bit clearer, but it also gives them an opportunity to be a part of an organization for a minute, just only if it's for a minute. You know what I mean? It gives them this understanding of how things can be worked or done differently through ourselves, through the collective process of us organizing within ourselves. So I think by us showing this, right, and somewhat leading by example, right, I think that gives people an understanding and a close relationship with the organization to be a part, and they know that we're approachable. They know that they can just walk up and have a conversation and not just come get things and go home. You know what I mean? But a lot of Mapinduzi members are constantly in and out of that community. So, Mapinduzi is a community organization. So, and to answer your question on Mapinduzi in Tanzania, I think, that just goes back to this whole Pan-African scope. The same ideology that Julius Nyerere had is what, we study and develop too. What they were trying to build in Tanzania, I think is a blueprint from how all organizations, especially colonized-led organizations, should try to build on. This idea of development within the masses, within ourselves. So I think, it comes as far as relationship. I think, this thinking process is what, relates it to us. But we chose Mapinduzi because we wanted to be different. We wanted to be something, exciting and something new for people to really attach themselves to. And I think, just that slogan and the meaning behind it, meaning revolution, has been able to attract a lot of, colonized youth in our area to the organization. That makes them want to get involved. We have a lot of Black students on the campus that are getting involved and starting to study these things. So, that's a lot about it.
All right, cool. Yeah. I guess maybe if you could outline some of the struggles and that's been going on in your particular area. Like, I know you guys, part of the community and everything, and how it's been building out the organization in that particular area. As well as, maybe some processes and people first joining the organization, like in relation to like political education and things of that nature as well.
Again, like our area, Greenville, North Carolina, is a growing city, right? It has like 100,000 people and growing in it, but Black population is only 37% of the city, right? 37% of the city, while a third of the city lives in poverty. So we already know who the majority is. So a lot of the conditions that we try to point out, like the contradiction that we talk about, is housing, is employment, and the lack of a decent wage, that wants to pay people a livable wage. We have an overwhelming presence because our communities are so small, right? We have an overwhelming presence of police in every Black community. They set up substations, many police stations in several Black communities around our area, so we have this constant surveillance all the time. There's blue light cameras when you enter Black communities, you know what I mean? So it sets up this mode of security and watch over Black communities constantly. So a lot of the politics that we bring, I think, are very new to our area. It's not that new, I won't act like, we the most radicalist thing out. Because a lot of people, because we have a college, I think the college is the 11th most populated college in the state, North Carolina, ECU. So a lot of youth, Black youth coming in and out of college, and a lot of them, have decent politics, and they have joined Mapinduzi. But I think our political process, and Mwalimu could speak on it too, is really I don't want to say act like people don't know, but like a beginning stage to a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about theory and practice. You know what I mean? When we talk about capitalism and imperialism, when we talk about colonialism and how it affects people domestically and internationally, we try to give people, the blueprints on how to build an understanding on why this theory is so important and why the Black radical tradition is so important. So we hold study sessions. We have an entry program, for Mapinduzi members who want to enter, and it's nothing like long or drawn out. It's just something that, we give people and try to get them, to read over and make sure that they have an understanding, or we help build that understanding. But political education, I think, is one of the most important things that we push right now in Mapinduzi, is just trying to get a decent understanding of people on why a lot of these things that we talk about and how they connected to the people that we want to work for are connected. Just
to add on to what Dedan was saying, as far as our entry program, it's still a work in progress, but we usually do give, like, say, a 90-day, I guess you could say probationary period. I don't necessarily like using that term, but usually you read the entry program, you show up for a couple of study sessions, because that's, like he was saying, that's very important. We always want to be developing our thought, even as we're doing our work in the community. And just to add on, as far as certain the struggles we're seeing, most of our struggles really come down to gentrification, because we got a Black community here that's basically being squeezed on two sides by two institutions. On one side, you've got, as Dedan already mentioned, ECU, colleges are notorious gentrifiers, but and you've also got on the other side the Vidant medical complex. So both of those two institutions are kind of squeezing these Black communities in the middle. So a lot of our struggles come down to that. I mean, we all know that heavily gentrified areas are also heavily policed areas. So that's basically what our struggles kind of center around.
And it's interesting you brought up the medical side, and we know that obviously, like, it's on a lot of people's mind right now concerning the pandemic. And can you tell us a bit more about the role of the complex as a exacerbator of gentrification? Because I know, like, you see like the propaganda is either the of healthcare workers and doctors and nurses and so forth as like, oh, they're doing so much, and is understanding that, but there's also that, and then there's also the, oh, they connect with capitalist pharmaceutical companies and so forth, and there's like obviously that's where skepticism about it. And so, how do you handle the contradictions with regards to that?
I would just say real quick regarding that contradiction, it's always important to keep in mind that with any institution, there's class struggle within it. So even say, for instance, within Vidant, most people that work for Vidant are not high paid level doctors. They're usually the janitorial staff or low level administration. And Mapinduzi, we do consider ourselves a working class organization. All of our members are, working class. Ain't none of us rich or anything. But so that's how we approach that. I mean, basically just to notice the class contradictions within everything. We bring that to the community too, because there may be some resentment, say for instance, against like the college, for instance. But what we want to do is to, bring some of our college comrades, our college attendant comrades, and to let put a face on it for the community, let them know that this college is not just this entity that's trying to squeeze y'all out. There are people battling on the campus against the same forces that are trying to squeeze y'all out. So that's pretty much how we handle that contradiction.
Sure. I just want to see if you guys wanted to highlight some of the coalitions that you guys have made over the course of the time you guys have been around. Maybe even highlight some successes and some positives to the organization and the work you guys done in the community. I know you guys talked about the mutual aid stuff. If you guys wanted to go deeper into that as well.
I know some coalitions that we work within. I know I'm a member of the Black Workers for Justice out here in North Carolina. I actually grew up in the Black Workers for Justice. Mapinduzi is a part of BAP, the Black Alliance for Peace. I sit on the CC in BAP. That's a lot of this stuff. A lot of the organizations that we work around. Ujamaa out of Baltimore, PACA, Washington, Hood Communists. They love it in Greenville, in the hood where I'm at. Like, you know what I mean? They love Hood Communists in the hood. That's a lot of the organizations we work out of. And I think, which leads to my other point is working within those organizations and with those, those good group of comrades and that theory that's constantly just being exchanged with one another. Excuse me, I got a cold, y'all. It has really developed a lot of thinking in our areas where we do, mutual aid at. A lot of people are starting to understand the contradictions that they're faced and starting to really feel, I'm starting to feel like they're starting to understand that, the only way that they can alleviate it is when they come together as a community and fight against it. And that's something that we've been pushing for a long time. Something that happened last year, to go back on last year, a demand of ours was to end the 1033 program that was here in Greenville, North Carolina. And we did some community education around that and fought it for a long time. But eventually it was, they said they got rid of it, right? The police got rid of it. We know that they have other ways to, to get this weaponry, right? But that small victory, though, put a lot of momentum in the people, though. These small wins, accumulate for bigger things in the future. So I think, I just think through this theory and practice that we are continuing to develop, we are starting to see, small gains. Like we know, for instance, we have a propaganda campaign. We go on the intersection in the Black community, and at each light, we just give out, pamphlets of whatever it is that we're trying to educate the people around at the time. And one day it got hot. Like the police came. They tried to put a police officer on every corner that a Mapinduzi member was on. 2 police officers came where I was at and another comrade was at. And then next thing you know, the community came out in force. You know, people started stopping their cars. People got out their cars with their phones in hand. Like, people started standing on the corners with us. So the community has already showed that kind of solidarity with Mapinduzi to let, you know, the police and outside forces know that, you know, even though they might not be coming to our meetings right away, right, or coming to certain events right away, we're still something in the community that's respected and won't be messed with, you know. So I think, you know, as an organization, like Huey said, like, we can't be underground. So to be an above ground organization that only formed last year and to have that kind of backing from the people, I think says
that's amazing. I guess has there been other resistance from other reactionary forces, or you say, outside of the police force that you guys have been dealing with? Or maybe is there other stories or issues that's been going on with the police and the organization?
Out of the uprising that happened last year in Greenville, which was a small one. It wasn't even like ones that happened in other countries, you know. Other cities. But out of that, I was arrested. I had nothing to do with anything they put on me, but so I have been going to court since last year. I got a court date coming up in December 7th, and I've been charged with insinuating a riot and destruction of government property. So I'm facing 2 felony charges, and so that's, you know, the surveillance on Mapinduzi. I won't act like we got constant surveillance where like you know what I mean, like following us everywhere we go. But there is this sense of, you know, they know who we are and they know what we represent, and they showing somewhat that they're threatened by it. You know, we put up a food pantry in the community where was good. The community loved it. Like, people was using it. People was taking stuff out of it and putting things back in it. So that was the form of community defense that we building slowly, right? Because we just can't bring this stuff up on our people all, you know, unexpected. Like, these things have to be built. So, but the police took it up. Like, the police, I think our food pantry was out there for like 3 days. And the police took it, you know, and they threw the food away. Like, they threw it in the trash right in front of the people. So, you know, these things like that are just their way of showing, you know, that they don't like what we do, for one, but also how they are not going to let us empower the people by these small acts, because they always counter it with an act of intimidation.
So it's, I forget what it was written, but there's always something about reactionaries, and they have an intense desire to just deal with food, you know, like food not bombs, if they have to deal with police like throwing out the food, and obviously different liberation movements that have to deal with like reactionaries who just like, you know, scorched earth campaigns and so forth. And one thing, and another point as far as community defense is, as part of the Revolutionary Party, and one is that I'm part of the anti-patriarchy task force, and they're trying to further anti-patriarchal stance and understand the role of African women and African marginalized genders involved in the liberation struggle. So, have there been any sort of resistance in as far as those who still even though they're down for Black liberation, African liberation, but they still might have some either chauvinistic attitudes or they rely on structures that are still highly patriarchal. How have you dealt with that, either with other organizations or within the communities you're with?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, we have several comrades that identify as, I guess you say, gender fluid or gender queer. We usually try to handle it, and I think Dedan could probably speak to this even more than I can, but we usually try to handle it by keeping our processes as open as possible, making sure that, you know, everybody has a voice in the organization, that they feel that if they have an issue, or if whether it's, you know, with the way we're working, or if it's even just the way, you know, we conduct our meetings, or the kind of language that's used, they can bring that up without any kind of fear of any sort of reprisal or anything of that nature. We try to, you know, keep our process open, and it's easier to do that at this point because we're still a small organization, so we all basically know each other. So, but we, you know, we're trying to also develop more formal ways to do that, particularly as we hope to develop our capacity and grow larger.
Yeah, I unite with what Limu said, and just to add to it, like, a lot of our study consists of, that understanding how that mode of thinking doesn't stand in any of the spaces of Mapinduzi. Like, we try our best, you know what I mean? Like, nothing's perfect, but I think, like what Limu said, that we definitely try our best to make sure that those things don't occur, and if they do occur, that we handle them as soon as they do. We have a process where we practice criticism, self-criticism, and I know a lot of people say that, right? But we practice it. I think the way we practice it in the truest form. We only bring these things up when it's for political reasons, you know what I mean, and when it's correct. So I think, with us practicing that, I think that helps us defend any shape or any form of that.
You mentioned some of the education or examples of that, like what works have you used as far as sort of building upon that criticism, self-criticism, as well as the fight against those patriarchal means and those structures.
I know we have a piece that we read the last week from Hood Communism that talked about what was it, Wellington?
It was actually it was a piece talking about pseudo-nationalism and patriarchy in certain organizations.
Right. And we also have probably about a month ago, we read Thomas Sankara on the question of women's liberation. So we try to incorporate as many texts that we can from African MLs or any other colonized person that speaks on this question. We try to inform ourselves around that constantly. So we do include text.
That's awesome. And I know that Dedan, you spoke about Black Workers for Justice. Could you go into how coming up in that helped as far as building Mapinduzi?
It helped out a lot. A little bit about me. My mother was always involved in the organization ever since I was young. When I spent some time in Cleveland, probably like 5 or 6, and my mother was a part of a Panther Party before they got Panther Party now. Like, you got to be wary of, but she was a part of a party before. You know what I mean? When they were still studying what needs to be studied. So my mom has always been a part of the organization. She moved to North Carolina and became a part of an organization called the Coalition Against Racism that's here in Greenville, North Carolina. But then she also joined the Black Workers for Justice with a lady named Shafi Mbali, who's been like an aunt to me ever since I've been little. And Saladin Muhammad, who's been like a father figure ever since I've been little. So just growing up in this around these type of people and just seeing the work and hearing how serious they were really gave me an understanding where it felt more like a responsibility as an African to go out there and do the work, just to see, how people stayed up all night, talking about trying to, conquer hard questions or trying to organize around situations that's happening on the ground, and not even gonna lie, to see the love that they got back from the people that they was working with, you know what I mean, was a love that I felt like can only be experienced when you do that kind of work, in which now I can say you only experience when you do this kind of work. So I think, that has been my motivation. My mother really instilled in me a deep appreciation and love for the people ever since I've been little. Like, I always knew that, outside of everything else, we belong to a nation of people that have been done wrong, and we got to do something about it. You know what I mean? So it's like just knowing that, I belong to an extended family. I just feel like, that's my responsibility. But then being in an organization, to answer your question, being in an organization and seeing how, you can operate with other people to make these things happen, I understood, that's what I wanted to do when I get older. So, we made a decision. When the politics wasn't that right in Greenville, North Carolina, we understood that, something new had to happen. And so we took all of that, all that studying and all this experience and just built Mapinduzi.
And just to add just to add real quick to what Dedan was saying, even though I don't necessarily come out of that kind of background where I've had like activists, I guess, in my family, I will say that for me personally, having found this organization, because I was actually directed to it by Saladin Muhammad, who Dedan just mentioned. But I know that having found this organization in a way for me is kind of like having found a second family, and particularly, one that that I can engage in this struggle with, and I can see how it's helping me develop even a better sense of responsibility, both personal responsibility and responsibility to the community, which is every bit as important. So yeah, I can say I'm glad I found Mapinduzi.
Yeah, let me tell y'all about Mwalimu. When I first met him, right, we were talking and just talking about books and stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, I'm start talking about Capital, Das Capital. Y'all know that how thick that book is. This brother like, oh yeah. He was like, right. Look, comrade right here, like, oh yeah. I read all three versions and I got notes on all three of them. So he pulled up this whole notebook. He got notes on all three books. I'm like, yeah, oh brother, like, you could definitely be a part of Mapinduzi. Like, that's the kind of, but you know what I mean? Again, that's the kind of, that's how serious we take it. And that's how serious we take our studies too, you know what I mean? To be able to develop the type of theory that's necessary to engage the type of people that needs to get it. It's important that we all, take it serious. So I just appreciate the comrade for even wanting to be a part of Mapinduzi and even just continuing to struggle with Mapinduzi. Yeah, I've been avoiding that book for so long because how big it is, man. I read an Communist Manifesto. I'm like, I got to read all the other small stuff before I get to that. You know what I mean? But we got to come out with a hood Communist Manifesto. We got like a 20-page pamphlet or something, man. I can't.
Yeah, you got to condense that joint.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I know you highlighted some of the work you guys do with Hood Communists. I know we had some comrades in the A-APRP that's a part of it. I don't know if you guys want to go into depth some of the work you guys done with them and your relationship with Hood Communists in general. I don't know if you guys wrote a piece for them or anything like that. Yeah, I actually wrote a piece for him a while back. Mwalimu wrote a piece for him a while back. Me and Erica, we sit on the CC as BAP. Sufi Mac, he a part of BAP. So, it just feel like family, and to me, when they, created Hood Communism, because I'm not like officially a part. I just, I say I'm a Hood Communist because that's what I am. You know what I mean? Like I come from that. I didn't go to college to develop this. Like all this come from independent reading and what I got from the streets, So like, so when they came out with it, to me, it was just so important because it spoke to a level of people that normally doesn't get the opportunity to get spoke to that way. You know what I mean? Like we take so much of this information and we use it amongst ourselves and we use these words and all these things, but it really is not digestible to the people who really need it the most. You know what I mean? So I think, it's like, they don't even know how much I appreciate that collective, like, because it's just important that, we create a thing, right? We need to create a wave where, this type of theory and this type of ideology is acceptable, right? Not only acceptable in these communities, right, but sought after. Like we got to make it that way in our communities, like, because Black, y'all know our community be on some more pseudo type stuff, you know what I mean? Or like some whole other stuff, like, you know what I mean? So it's like we got to bring this education to a point where it's on a material level. Or like Fred Hampton said, like if we're not educated, we'll fall for anything. He said we'll be a neo-colonialist. You know what I mean? So it's like it's important that we bring this education back to like the community that needs it the most, so we can have some roots in it. But yeah, we both look our articles up. Yeah. But yeah, and I think even you talking about you doing independent research and like having like the street politics. If you want to talk to like recruiting, because some people even within these organizational spaces may look at like, oh yeah, these people are like criminals, quote unquote, right? Especially in a society that's like this whole thing is criminal. The American empire is criminal, right? But I don't know if you want to talk to that, like politicizing and mobilizing people who are like a part of the street element and like the importance of it. Yeah, no, I think it's important. Like I really do think it's important because again, those are the people who experience on a consistent basis, especially around the things that we talk about all the time. When we talk about police and domestic colonialism, who are the people that's constantly controlled by a heavy police presence? It's people in, you know what I mean, what we would consider the hood, you know. When we talk about housing and education, who are the people who have a lack of housing and a lack of a decent education? It's people that come from these communities, right? So, you know, I think, you know, it's important, again, like, do we have to take this education back to the people who, and I hate to say it this way, right, but have nothing to lose, you know, because in this age of capitalism, right, especially after Reagan deemed this whole black capitalism thing, we have evolved away from the black radical tradition, right, to this black entrepreneurship that gives our people this thinking that if we hustle hard enough, or we can come up with some scheme quick enough, then we can alleviate ourselves out of the trenches, right? But it's like we ain't getting out of the trenches. We still stuck in the trenches. Like, there is nothing that has come out of black capitalism that has been able to produce anything beneficial for our people. But because of a lack of education, I think you know, people are still confused around how to really get out of this period of stagnation, right? So that's why we have to bring these radical politics to the hood, because the hood is the one, and I'm not saying, you know, colonized, we are colonized, right? So we all have a crucial role to play in this liberation struggle. But the one that, to me, this is what I think, the people that are the ones that are able to make the blows from what we have seen in the last couple of years to the power structure has really come from the hood. Like, the only reason we know about Ferguson is because the people in Ferguson resisted. The only reason we know about Baltimore is because the people in Baltimore resisted. So it shows us that this resistance is still a needed element in our liberation struggle, right? But I think because of comfortability, right, because of this system allows our people to be able to, you know, get a couple of stuff, you know, we have this level of comfortability, but ain't nothing comfortable in the hood. Like, ain't nothing comfortable in the hood. People still starving. People are still being brutalized. Like, we know like, there's some places in Greenville that look like third world countries, and they living like it. Like in the South, y'all already know poverty is horrible. You know what I mean? Not to say it's not horrible anywhere else, but it looks very different in the South. So I think, you know, it's important, again, that we got to take this information back to the people who, you know, who have shown themselves like willing to fight.
Yeah, just to add on real quick to what Dedan was saying. Yeah, that's why we always, no matter what we do, we always have an educational component to it. We're doing mutual aid. You know, we got some literature there. We're going to be doing pretty soon here a vaccine drive for those who, you know, who want to take the vaccine or who want to even get tested. And, you know, you can believe we're going to have some education materials there too. Because like he was saying, yeah, you know, you're dealing with people in the hood who don't have anything to lose. But we also know that having nothing to lose might not necessarily automatically make somebody revolutionary. There has to be an educational component to it, because we're also fighting against, you know, petty bourgeois ideologies, like you mentioned, the whole, you know, entrepreneurialism, got to get mine kind of mentality. So, yeah, we stress education in everything we do.
Well, there's stress on, I talk about the streets and about the hood, and especially in the South, because I know, they're part of Malcolm's grassroots movement, and the whole part of New Africa, in that probably New Africa is, I think, the struggles are on the land in the South, and also, and this is like a long history of like Africans like rebelling and fighting in the South. It tells more how that sort of like militants, that sort of militancy gets sort of suppressed, and how people, like how the masses are able to say, you know what, I can fight. Like, not only can I fight, but I can organize and do all that.
I think, well, you're right. I mean, the South has a really strong history of repression towards anything even slightly radical. I mean, for the longest time in the South, pretty much the only way that you can even get close to anything radical, you pretty much had to be a preacher or something. So, and like, you know, we know most of them ain't really radical, but But yeah, going along with that, we try to work within the existing institutions and draw people to a more radical stance from there. Like with our mutual aid, a lot of the materials we get come from local churches. So that's a good sort of entryway towards some of the members of the congregation of those churches, especially the younger ones who may not be as invested in the whole petty bourgeois atmosphere that sometimes is a part of churches. So yeah, I mean, we basically, even as we're trying to create new institutions, we also don't want to ignore the ones that exist and the people in those existing organizations, institutions that can be radicalized, maybe even radicalized out of those institutions into, a more radical organization. So I hope to answer your question, because I felt like I kind of rambled, but
yeah, I think that did a good job on it, and also relates to how the A-APRP, like, one thing is that religion and revolution, that there is harmony, and that's, I know you talked about having some Marxist-Leninist in line, and how there might be some pushback if you say, like you say, you're Marxist-Leninist, you're like, oh, I don't believe that the atheists, that's satanic stuff or something like that, but it's that revolution, that like there is a history that, yes, there've been, like as you're saying, well, that there is a history of any current force of religion and to sort of reinforce the status quo, to instill like conservative ideals. But at the same time, there's also been a history of using spirituality. Like we talked about Haiti, and like the major role of like voodoo in that, and also like liberation theologists of Muslims and so forth, who use religion as a force to make material gains. So I think that's a really important.
Yeah, I guess, have you guys gotten pushback from people who know you guys are Marxist-Leninists, or you explain to them and they're like more so religious and they're like, oh, like, has there been pushback on that? Or, and then if there is, or if you guys foresee that, how do you guys normally combat that in any way?
Nah, we haven't gotten any pushback. We don't go around saying we Marxist-Leninists either. Like, that's something that you'll probably tell once you start reading our material and start seeing, the way we talk, and some of the things that we want to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like, but we haven't really gotten any pushback. I think because of the message that we have, and because it's so different, it really, a lot of, like Mwalimu said, a lot of these organizations, like churches and things like that, want to help out in ways that they can, because they see how Mapinduzi is connected to the community. And like really right now in Greenville, and maybe, I might be boasting this up too much, but I feel like people know, like, in order to get to the community, you somewhat have to go through Mapinduzi, because they see the work, and the work doesn't match, so it's like, we haven't gotten any pushback. We get pushback from the status quo, and from the elite and the black bourgeois. We got a little bit of pushback from them, but from the people and workers and things like that, like we haven't got any pushback.
Cool. I guess, is there anywhere anybody can get in contact with you guys or find you guys if they're looking to join an organization? Like, how we want to go about doing that? Who should they reach out to? Is there a website to go to do so?
I'm gonna keep it real. When people call me and talk about joining Mapinduzi, I tell them to join back or join something like that. Because Mapinduzi is just something right now, because like Mwalimu said, we're a small organization, so it's something right now that's just, it's a homegrown organization for Greenville, North Carolina. You know what I mean? I just don't see, truthfully, right? Just being truthful with y'all, I just don't see how Mapinduzi would look branched out in other places unless they just use the name. You know what I mean? But I think, what I tell people is like, join BAP or join a local organization in your area that is doing, good radical work. And if there is none, then create one. Like, you know what I mean? Like, build one, build an organization. Like, it's out there. The only reason we created Mapinduzi is because, again, there was no radical politics in Greenville, North Carolina. You got the NAACP and you got the SELC, and that's it. And then you got some pop-ups, maybe, that are trying to be an organization, but they're not really radical organizations. They 501c3s that work inside the system, right? That just do whatever they can do for the people, while they get a check. You know what I mean? So that's the reason we built Mapinduzi. We count all that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about though, just how to find out more or even get in contact with us, I mean, we're on social media. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and I think even an Instagram page. And we've got our email. So I mean, there are definitely ways to get in touch with us if someone wants to do that. So.
Oh yeah, you can definitely get in touch with us and support us, and we support back. Like we definitely believe in building a contingent with other Black radical forces and organizations that want to get this work across. So it's like if we talk about collaborating in that way, then look us up on our social media platforms, like Mwalimu said, because we definitely want to work, and want to keep on building in that way.
Awesome. Awesome. And so it's awesome here, and we'll make sure to post the links in the description. And also, you're talking about your case. Okay, so is there any you say you can't let people outside? I mean, build is more for just like building coalitions, but as far as like helping out and supporting you, as far as like what the feds are they're trying to do, is there any way that people can help as far in that way?
Yeah, there is. We got there's a defense committee that meets on Sundays, and people can go to either one of them social media platforms that my comrade mentioned and send a note. And I mean, we encouraging, people to join that defense committee, right? If they want to be a part of, just helping strategize or just amplifying, the things that need to be done. There's a petition that's out that people have been signing. People can continue to sign that. We have a phone zap that we do, what we call the local DA, I think every Tuesday. And there's a whole script where people just demand that the charges to be dropped and things like that. So, I mean, if people want to get involved in that way, just hit up our social media platforms, and there's definitely some work. We got some work for y'all.
Love it. And I love what you said. Like, if there's no organization that you think's doing that work to build your own, we keep seeing that too. So I was glad that y'all saying things. So people watching, again, understand. Like, keep watching. I see you like in contact with peeps, with our comrades here. But again, it's not just listening to it. While it might be fine, like you got to build on it. So
right. Yeah, and this is an honor for us too, because we keep up with y'all, you know what I mean? So the show, like, we appreciate it. Like, we done made it.
right. Yeah, I mean, we definitely honored that y'all asked us here. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. We appreciate it. I guess as we sign it off, you guys have any last words or things you guys want to plug in before we end it?
Only last words I really have to say, just to go back again to the educational component. Like Dedan was saying, if you don't have if you can't find a radical organization in your area, then you can start one, even if it's just with a couple of buddies. But whatever you do, just make sure that you all are constantly educating yourselves, that you're constantly reading radical literature and seeing how it applies to the work you're doing. So.
Right. And everybody go to BAP and look at the event. The events is African Month, where they're going to be educating people about African all month. And I think that's an important conversation that we need to have and understand that, that colonialism domestically and internationally. So, people that want to get more informed about that, go to BAP. And there's a listing on the website where be showing like different hosts, people, different organizations hosting, a video or teaching about African. So everybody get on that. And again, thank y'all.
Thank you. And we also had our last episode of Jamal and I. We talked about a comrade from BAP. So again, they understand that just because you're doing work here and you only seeing people around, that doesn't mean that the motherland. You can't forget the motherland. You can't forget Africa. No.
What that saying say? If Africa ain't free, ain't none of us free.
Right, yeah. I mean, as Africa goes, so we all go. So yeah.
Exactly, and thank y'all again. We definitely appreciate this. We also have other podcasts that we host from other comrades. I'm gonna butcher all of this. I don't have it written down right now, but I know we have, I'm gonna put the links definitely in the description. I don't know, Evan, if you remember some of that.
So we got the Forward Ever podcast. It's on Spotify. We got our Ancestor Voices with Mr. Kura and Ujamaa. They do their things on Sunday evenings. And out in California, we got New Mexico chapter. They do their weekly Pan African news on Thursdays. Also got the Revolution African Women. They do theirs once a month. Last Saturday of the month, so check those out. And of course us every Monday evening here on the East Coast of Snakes. So thank you so much. And forward
ever, y'all.